Hello, and welcome to Armenian Enough, a podcast about life and identity in the diaspora, with your host, Lara Vanian-Green.
Hello, and welcome to Season 4 of Armenian Enough. I really do love the people I get to interview on this show, but I am especially excited to get to speak to our guest today because she is someone I personally admire for many reasons, not the least of which is her wicked sense of humor. But I have a soft spot in general for any artist whose work allows us to look at ourselves in a new way and hopefully gain a new appreciation for our beauty and our flaws. Today's guest is an Armenian-American stand-up comedian, actor, writer, and producer. She has been a fixture of the Los Angeles comedy circuit for 10 years and recently rose to fame with her hilariously accurate depiction of the various Armenian diaspora and subcultures. Her nuanced portrayal illuminates the immigrant experience in a way that transcends cultural barriers. I know that many of you are already huge fans. Welcome to the show, Mary Basmadjian.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. You don't know how many times people have said to me, you should have Mary on your show. You should. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm working on it.
Well, thank you so much. I love this podcast, and I love the Armenian Enough title is just so perfect. I love it.
Oh, thank you. It's cool that you get it being so immersed in the Armenian culture. I would think that you had never had a reason to doubt that.
No, it's always there. The doubt is always there. It comes with your last name.
Oh my God. I think that can be true in a lot of ways. I've had people even who are from Armenia and living in Armenia sometimes say that they didn't feel Armenian enough. And that blew my mind because I don't know how you could get any more Armenian.
Right. Right.
But, and I also really appreciate, from watching your videos, and I already told you before we started recording that my daughter is a big fan and my husband's a fan of all the stuff he understands in English. But from watching your videos, I kind of felt like I knew you, which I think is a common experience with various celebrities, but I felt like I know her. And then when I met you I think it was at Queernessage, I was like, hi, and you were so friendly. And I thought for a minute, I had to tell myself oh wait, you've never actually met her before.
Right, but I think we've interacted on social media for a while.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like I know people even though I haven't met them in person. Of course, it's not like that with everyone, but I have heard that sentiment a lot. Oh, just by watching your videos, I feel like I know you. And I think that's a good thing. As an artist, you kind of want to feel connected like that with your audience.
Definitely. I think it's a really special connection. And within a few minutes of first meeting you, we had your sister take photos of us in Armenian garb. That was pretty awesome.
That was such a great event.
So we always start by asking our guests to tell us a little bit about their background. And what I really mean here is your childhood, the environment that you grew up in, and of course, the role that Armenian culture played in your growing up.
Yeah, sure. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So already a lot of Armenian influence around. My parents divorced when I was 5, and I would visit my dad on the weekends, and my dad we would go to Abril bookstore, and he would pick up some of the Armenian workbooks, because learning Armenian and reading and writing and continually speaking Armenian was a big part of our family, especially my dad's side. He wanted to preserve the language, and he wanted me to know the language, even though if it meant sacrificing my weekends as a child.
Yes.
And then my dad got remarried when I was 11, and I have a sister, Ojen, and I moved in with my dad's parents, my grandparents, when I was in 7th grade. And so his parents raised me since I was 7th grade, and my maternal grandparents had a lot of influence on me when I was younger with my schoolwork. Grandpa would pick me up from school, and then mom would pick me up after work. So grandparents have been a very important part of my life, and I cherish them very much. And they're initially the ones that instilled the Armenian culture within me and the importance of the language and culture, history, and everything included. So I think I have a lot I owe to my grandparents, I think.
Where were your parents from?
Both of my parents were born in Yerevan. Actually, my mom was born in Zeytun and my dad was in Yerevan, and their parents repatriated from Egypt. My dad's parents were from Alexandria, and my mom's parents were from Cairo.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have ancestors that were in the genocide or no?
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason my grandparents were in Egypt is because they fled the genocide. But before that happened, my great grandmother on my father's side, she was actually adopted because her entire family perished in the genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And from my mother's side, my grandfather, his sister, his older sister, and his mother were saved by a wealthy Turkish family. And so they were spared, but everybody else in their family died. And they fled to Egypt afterwards, and then they came back to Armenia. But on both sides of my family, actually, they were saved by Turkish families, different Turkish families, of course, but they were both saved by Turkish families.
Wow. Stories like that do allow me to have a little bit of a soft spot for some Turkish people.
I agree.
It's hard.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like my great grandmother on my dad's side, she loved Turkish music. She watched Turkish television. So my dad, till this day, he watches Turkish TV, like he watches their shows and stuff. And I know a lot of people, like a lot of Armenians in our community, they look down on that, or they say like to not listen to their music or whatever. But I mean, honestly, we're right next to each other. Our cultures are they will mix, I think.
Yeah.
We're bound to listen to some of their music. Our music is bound to sound alike sometimes. That's a whole nother argument I'm not willing to get into right now.
Yeah, no, it's the same region.
Right.
Food, music, whatever, it's the same region.
Food and everything else, like Turkish coffee. Look, I'll admit, when people say Turkish coffee, I get pissed. Like, that's Armenian coffee, but it's like, bro, this is what it is right now. Like,
Yes.
that's not gonna, but yeah, that's the story with my family.
I tell people that Armenian coffee is a lot like Turkish coffee, except that we call it Armenian coffee.
Right.
No, my grandfather spoke Turkish too, and he was he lived in Istanbul for a while, but he used to always say like it's important to know your enemy's language.
Oh my God, totally. My dad says that too.
Might be true, but I don't feel like learning Turkish.
I don't either. Before I learned Turkish or Russian, I'm not saying Russian is my enemy. I'm just saying I just want to learn Russian sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to perfect knowing Armenian first, because I myself, I don't know a lot of words, or like I don't know how to spell certain things. My level of reading and writing is like pre-K to first grade when it comes to Armenian writing. Like I'm not that good at it. So
I'm so much better than you. I am at a 3rd grade level.
Oh, how dare you?
My spelling sucks, but yeah. So that's interesting. So you speak it well, but your reading and writing is not so great.
Right. And it used to be a lot better when, dad was forcing me to sit down every weekend and go over it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I was doing the Vartush vocab series, like I was learning a lot as I was going along. And I kind of want to do that again. I would love to take lessons and learn better, like just to be better at it. It sucks when I'm reading something like a child book, like in Armenian, and I'm having to sound out the vowels and everything.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, the struggle is real. It really is. And I'm trying to help my kid. She is in an Armenian school, but the poor child, nobody speaks Armenian around her. I feel so bad. We just hired a tutor. But I was telling you that when you were doing the learn Armenian alphabet series over the summer that I would, even though it was maybe not child appropriate, I would let my kid watch your videos, and she loved them. And she really got to pay attention because she, she loves bad words. At this age, I think it's like a very naughty pleasure. So you had her full attention, is all I can say, which is more than her Armenian teachers can say at school.
Tell her Armenian teachers to start cussing. No.
Or maybe you could do an entire series.
I know. I should. I know. And I totally left that undone, and I feel so bad. But when I started that series, I was house sitting. So it was the perfect storm. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, but I haven't continued, and I keep telling people I'm going to continue. I swear I'm going to continue it.
Well, please do. Please do. Don't feel guilty. That's an Armenian thing you can get rid of, but
right?
Do it.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you realized that you were drawn to comedy, either watching it or performing it yourself? Like, how did that come about?
When I was younger, like I was a little kid, I would sometimes like imitate or emulate my grandpa, and it would piss him off, but it would make the other people laugh. So like I would do that when I was a kid. And then at school, like in high school, I would take the public transportation, and my God, there was like so much going on the buses. So like I would come to school and I would start telling stories of the funny things that would happen to me and my friend on the bus. So it kind of started like that. I would tell stories and people would be drawn to it. And I really liked, that people would actually listen to me. And then I think it was 2007 or 2006. I went to a comedy show, and after the comedy show, they were giving out flyers for like a comedy school at that place. It was at the Ice House in Pasadena. I just took it, and this is back, maybe I was like 20. I started taking classes for comedy. I think so, or maybe younger, 19. I don't know. Oh my God, it's all a blur. Time is a blur right now. But that's like early 20s, I want to say.
Okay, cool. And that was your formal introduction, taking comedy lessons.
Yeah, that was.
Well,
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I was just very impressed by you having Jay Leno introduce you at Flappers. I was not expecting that. I was like, whoa, he's still alive and around.
He is alive. No, he was so sweet. He was so cool. And Flappers, like he drops in and he does sets at Flappers every now and then. He is from Burbank himself. And I think a lot of like older, well-known comics, they do that as they get older. They do shows here and there. They stay pretty local. I believe he was picking up some time to do like a special later on. Usually they do that to get some practice or whatever and hone out some jokes that they had. It was really cool, dude. I did not expect Jay Leno to ever introduce me or to even make a move on Vartus for that matter. Backstage, I was like, listen, Vartus is a little bit of promiscuous character. She might like, say something sexy to you or whatever. He's like, yeah, no, that's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. And then he came up and he put his moves on Vartus.
I remember you guys hugging, like, I was like, wow, they like really know each other. But oh, that's awesome. I mean, I'm assuming that you decided to make fun of or use Armenian things in your comedy because that was what was around you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I started comedy 12 years ago, I started doing stand-up. I went to that class at the Ice House, and that's basically like what I was taught, from the very beginning. Just keep a notebook and a pen with you. Whatever you see around you, write it down. If you see the funny in it, write a joke about like that. So, and I was raised in an Armenian environment, and about 12 years ago, I honestly was not seeing any Armenian comedians. I'm sure there was comedians that were Armenian, but they weren't speaking about like the Armenian experience in LA the way I was raised. So I started talking about that, and then I put my set on YouTube, and it kind of went viral. Like it had 30,000 something views on YouTube back then. Like that was like, I was so happy about that. And now it's like, TikToks have millions of views and all this other stuff. Like it's not like how it used to be, but I kind of went viral and I was really excited about that, to talk about the Armenian experience, especially talk about Armenian female experience, because I
Oh,
think, and I've mentioned this like to other people, but like I wasn't raised traditionally. Like Armenians usually tend to raise their own kids, the kids live with them, but I lived with my grandparents, and my grandparents were really lax. Like they were really cool. You know how grandparents are, chill with everything. They let me do a lot of stuff that I think parents wouldn't let me do. So I always say like I know the upbringing, the female Armenian upbringing, but I wasn't restricted like other Armenian females may be. Like I didn't have a older brother telling me I can't do X, Y, and Z. I didn't have my dad even telling me that I can't do this or that. So making videos and doing comedy, I feel like I may not have been able to do if I was raised in a traditional household.
that's interesting because I was thinking, it's difficult to be immersed in a culture and then have enough of like a distance to be able to see what's funny about it. Because usually when you're in it, you don't actually realize what's funny about
Right.
it. It's
Yeah.
the outsiders that see what's funny about it. But maybe
Mhm.
that freedom is really what allows you to do that.
Right. I think so.
In that sense, we had a little bit of a similar experience growing up in that my parents divorced when I was 13, and I had a lot more freedom than I may have had if my dad were living in the same household. My
Mhm.
mom was from Argentina, so she was very cosmopolitan and very open minded. So I didn't grow up in that traditionally Armenian household either.
Mhm.
And oh man, sorry, stories are flooding into my mind, but yeah.
But did you have Armenian cousins that did grow up, or like Armenian friends that did grow up in a traditional sense, and you were able to see the difference between your life and theirs?
Yes, friends. I didn't really have any family. My cousins and stuff were mostly in South America, and there was a huge age difference. But I had friends because I did go to an Armenian school for a few years. And sort of like my best friend since we were 5 years old grew up in a very traditionally Armenian household. And yeah, mine was the house that kids would come over to or teens would come over to. And, everyone would say, like, oh, we're going to go have a sleepover at Lara's house. And then they'd come over, change into their club clothes, and
Mhm.
we'd all go out
Mhm.
places their parents would never let them. And my mom was very like liberal in a lot of things, including serving alcohol. So she'd always be like, "Do you want some Kahlua? Do you want some?" She'd always like get us a little buzzed, like who does that? I can't imagine doing that to my kid. But she wanted to be like one of the kids, I think, in a way.
Dude, you want to now, I don't know if I've said this story in public before, but here goes. My mom, when I was 7, she always smoked cigarettes, but she was like, "Here, try it with me." I was 7.
Oh
She's
my
like,
God.
"Try it with me so you don't try it with your friends." And then when I took a hit and it wasn't strong enough, she like hit me. She goes, "Take a good hit." So like I took
Oh
a
my
hit and I
God.
just started choking, and that was like her way of like, "Oh, now you won't do it with your friends." I'm like, I'm in elementary school. We're not smoking cigarettes,
Those second graders are.
like I'm not doing that. And also drinking was also a thing that she allowed as well. I mean, I have a infamous story with tequila at the age of 14. Yeah, 14
Uh-huh.
or 15. She bought me a handle of Jose Cuervo and she was like, "You got to pour yourself 14 shots. Like that's the rule. You got to pour it
What?
yourself." Yeah, dude. The last shot I remember taking was my 12th shot and I
How
blacked.
did you not die of alcohol poisoning?
Good question. Good question. Well, I was also eating and maybe the food helped. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God.
But I just remember I've never, like, I haven't been able to touch tequila after that. Maybe that was like her end goal. But I mean, I still drink vodka. I don't care. Like, that didn't help. But yeah,
Mine was with Jack Daniels, but it wasn't my mom that made me drink it. I was 14 and I went with one of my gay friends to the movies and we ordered a large Coke and dumped out half of it and then put in a fifth of Jack Daniels. And I don't know what horrible movie we watched. I think it was like a Latin version of Dirty Dancing. It was like called Salsa or something like that. I have no idea, except we came out, it was in Glendale. We came out and we're like stumbling onto Brand Boulevard. And I was sitting down because I was so dizzy. And then we saw these police officers walking our way. and I couldn't hold it in anymore, and I like puked all over the place.
Oh, shit.
And then I thought, oh no, they clearly am underage. I just did this right in front of the police. And the one of the officers laughed at me and he goes, maybe next time you won't drink so much, little girl. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
oh my God.
Was it at the Frog Fountain movie theater in Glendale?
No, it was before. It was like, I don't think those movie theaters exist now as theaters, but it was like closer to where Carousel is now, like
Okay.
on brand.
Yeah.
I don't remember the theater. It's all a bit hazy.
Yeah, I bet.
But then I called my mom from a payphone, which used to be a thing. And she came and picked me up and was like, what have you done? But I didn't get in trouble for it. I probably looked miserable enough.
Yeah, that was your punishment.
Yeah. Oh, God. Why did I share that story, Mary? Why? You do make a couple of jokes about your mom in the in your act, at least the performance that I saw. Where does that stem from, and how are you? Like, my mom would have killed me if I had said anything about her in public. The only reason I can talk about her is because she is no longer alive. How do you get away with making jokes about your family?
Well, my dad doesn't come to my shows. He's never been to a show, and I'm very happy about that.
Really?
I tell him. I mean, yeah, he won't. I don't think he'll even understand or grasp it because English is not his first language, and he's still, even though he's been in America since '79, he still doesn't speak English very well. He doesn't understand it, so I don't even think he would understand it that well. He's been to like my Armenian. I did like an Armenian play, and he came to that, and I think that's when he realized, oh, she has a talent or people like her stuff. That's the level that my dad would accept it. I know he knows I make fun of his accent sometimes, and he got kind of butthurt about that. But my mom, honestly, again, this goes back to what I learned in my first comedy class with Bobby Oliver. She's my comedy teacher. She's amazing. I learned that to talk about what's around me. And at the time when I started my comedy classes, my mom was in jail. She was in federal prison. So I had to talk about that. And I had to talk about my childhood because, like, she was a young mom and she played a lot of pranks on me. So, like, now that when I write jokes, like, they're funny, but they also show, like, kind of how crappy my childhood was. And then, like, I had this one joke because this really happened. I had this one joke where I talk about how I was about 7 years old. I was watching TV with my mom, and this Disneyland commercial comes on, and I'm like, "Oh, Mom, can we please go?" And she's like, "Yeah, go pack your stuff. We'll go to Disneyland tomorrow." So I go get ready for Disneyland. I come back, and I'm like, "Okay, Mom, we're gonna go tomorrow morning, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah. Go to bed, go to sleep, and you'll go to Disneyland in your dreams." And like this really happened. Okay. Yeah, and then I kind of fast forward when she came out of jail, she was in a halfway home and she called me up. She's like, "Mary, I really want some Raffalo's pizza." And I was like, "Yeah, Mom, go get ready and give me a call back." And I go into like, yeah, go to bed, go to sleep and eat that pizza in your dreams. And so when that joke came out, she was in jail or she was in the halfway home. And then somebody wrote an article about me in the Pasadena Star News. And I do talk about my mom going to jail and how I write jokes about this, whatever. She wasn't happy about that. When I first visited her and we were talking, I think I showed her the article or she had the article. She was like, "Oh, don't talk about me. This is like people are laughing at me." And I explained to her, I'm like, "Listen, people are not laughing at you. They don't know you. They're laughing because they can relate." I'm like, "They have relatives that have been to jail. Like, which Armenian will sit here and talk to you about their relatives going to jail? But guess what? There are Armenians in jail, like that shit happens." So I explained to her, I'm like, "Listen, they're not laughing at you. They're laughing at the joke and that they can relate and how I've like come through as the childhood, whatever." She still didn't really grasp the idea and she was still very hurt. I think that comes from her. We were talking about this earlier. She is narcissistic, I believe. She has those tendencies. So she didn't have the capacity to put herself in my shoes and in my childhood and how the punchline isn't about her. The punchline is that I've come out of this situation, whatever. So one day she comes to my show without telling me. Okay. And we weren't on good talking terms. And everybody on the lineup with my comedy brothers, their parents were in town. They're like, "Oh, my mom's here, my mom's here." And I get up there as a joke because I didn't know she was there. I'm like, "Oh yeah, my mom's here too. Haha, JK, that bitch hates me." Girl,
Sorry.
when I tell you, I got off stage and I looked at my phone and she goes, "Are you sure I'm not here?" And she sent me a picture like of the stage from where she was sitting. And I remember thinking, "Holy shit, she's gonna beat the shit out of me in front of all these people. She's gonna throw a shoe at me."
Oh my
And
God.
then like I guess she came with her friends and I did a joke about her and she was very upset. She's like, "I can't believe you embarrassed me like that." Da, 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 da. Listen, I didn't know she was coming. If I knew she was coming, I would have done a way worse joke about her. No, she was just like, "You embarrassed me in front of my friends." I'm like, "Way to make it about yourself. This is my show,
Oh.
blah, blah, blah." But yeah, like, I think what happened is when she first complained, when, that article came out and she was like, I realized then that comedy was my baby and that
Mm.
you have no right to tell me how to do my comedy. I have never felt like that about anything in my life ever. And with comedy, it was like, you have no say in this realm. Your narcissistic or whatever ways cannot affect my comedy. Like, this is mine. So I'm very I'm very stubborn about my comedy. Don't tell me what to do with my comedy
You're
time.
very protective. It sounds like a
Yeah,
sacred space for you.
I
And
think so. Yeah.
also, I mean, narcissists do really want to protect their image. So that makes a
Hmm.
lot of sense on that level.
A
But
big time.
you know what? Even regular people get their feathers ruffled up if they're made fun of. But
Right.
I think you actually like put your hand on a nerve in the Armenian culture in particular because we're culturally don't air our dirty laundry, right?
Yeah, totally.
So my mom, I grew up in a house, the royal we, I grew up in a house where my mom had no real ability to laugh at herself.
Mm.
So if I made even the slightest joke that poked fun at her, she would get really upset with me.
Hmm.
And she would say like, "Why can't you make a nice joke?" And I'm thinking like, "'Cause they're not funny." Like,
Like, you wouldn't laugh anyway.
what's the nice joke? Like, "You're so beautiful." Haha. Like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. And boy, did I really like my husband makes fun of me and everyone that he loves and he's close to, he ruthlessly tears apart in jokes and constant like making fun of. And in the beginning, I was like, of our relationship, I just wasn't used to that. So I would get really upset and really offended. And man, it took a lot of work, but now I'm comfortably at a place where I can give it back. I can take it and I can give it back. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. That's awesome though. I think humor is like really important, like to have in relationships and family, everything. Also, the person saying the jokes has to be good too. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
just gonna like, for example, like people will talk smack online, and then if I respond with a stern comment or if I'm, cussing them out, they'll be like, "Oh, but you're a comedian. How come you're not taking a joke?" Well, because you're not a comedian, and that's not a joke, and it's not funny. You're just insulting me. Like,
Yeah.
where's the punchline? And I'll laugh. Like,
Yes. No, I definitely think the you can make a lot of off-color jokes and have them be funny and like horrible jokes about things you shouldn't maybe joke about and still
right,
have them be funny. I think the cardinal sin is when it's not funny and it
right,
just falls flat and you're like, yeah, you're a jerk. Like you
yeah.
can't say that. So, since we're talking about this, is there anything that you think either cannot or should not be made fun of?
Ugh.
I know that's
You
hard.
know, I think if it's like you said, if it's done well, if the punchline is not punching down on the underdog, because that's
Mhm.
another rule that I learned is like, don't punch down on the underdogs. You're supposed to punch up. Like,
Yes.
If it works, it works. I've heard, when you think of, rape, you're like, this is absolutely not funny. Do not ever joke about this. But I've also heard a rape survivor tell the best rape joke ever. And I've laughed. Okay.
Yeah.
I've laughed at a rape joke. Like, I have to admit that. So I feel like anything can be joked about, but you have to do it in the right way. And it doesn't have, like, it shouldn't punch down again on the underdog. That's my opinion, though.
I totally agree with you. 100%. Who are your favorite comics?
Oh.
Well, okay, let me take it back. They're all your favorites, I'm sure. And you have tons of friends that you can't mention, but let me rephrase the question a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Before you got into comedy, or in the beginning of comedy, who did you look to for inspiration, or who did you? Yeah, that's the question.
It's a little bit of mixed bag here. When I was younger, I was not exposed to stand-up comedy. So like I got exposed to stand-up comedy like in my late teens, early 20s, okay? Before that, because everything was like Armenian in our household, my exposure to comedy was the Leno guys that would do these like sketch videos, and back then it was on VHS. So like there was like all this VHS tapes that we would buy, and it was sketch comedy, and these guys were so funny. And of course, like there was hardly any women, or like there was one woman that would act with them, but they also played like female roles. Like that was like another thing I grew up with these guys putting on wigs and stuff and doing funny characters, which I think that's kind of where I might get the character aspect from. But as I got older, I know like everybody thinks I'm a comedian, I have to say like Richard Pryor or like, Carlin. But honestly, like I loved Cat Williams. Like Cat Williams, his like the specials that he did was really funny. It was Cat Williams, and then there was Bernie Mac, and then Lunel, who tours with Cat Williams. And then as I got into the comedy scene, I went to more comedy shows. I saw more comedians. And then of course, like I saw Dave Chappelle's, I would watch Dave Chappelle's show on Comedy Central before I saw his stand-up. Mm-hmm. So that's how I knew him. So I knew his sketches, and I liked his sketches. As I got more into comedy, I started liking more people that weren't famous, or like they weren't on TV or shows and things like that. So there's like a array of people that I really like and I enjoy. It's just a lot to name, honestly.
I'm sure. Do you have any female comics that you are really inspired by or like?
Totally. I love Jackie Fabulous. She's hilarious. She's done our show a couple times. She's on the East Coast now. There's Yamanika. She's hilarious. She's also on the East Coast. There's, of course, Bobby Oliver, my comedy teacher. She's really funny. And then there is, I think her name's Elaine Rogers. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. She's a Comedy Store comedian, and she's so funny. She tours with, damn, I'm so bad with names.
It's okay.
Oh God. But she tours with that guy that does a character with the slick back hair and the glasses and the leather vest.
I was thinking, like, when you said leather jacket, I was like, Andrew Dice Clay? Like, who are we talking about?
Andrew Dice Clay. Yes. Andrew Dice Clay. She tours with him. Her name is Elaine Kerrigan. There we go. Elaine Kerrigan.
We got it.
Yeah. Yes. There's one more. Gabby Lamb, Jill Chrissy.
I can really feel how I've put you on the spot here, and I apologize.
And I'm like, I gotta name everybody I know.
Someone's gonna get mad. I'm gonna forget someone. It's okay. In your Oscar acceptance speech, you can have a long list of names.
Janae Thompson, she's really funny too. But Melissa Shoshahi, she was on my last show, the one after my birthday show, this past show that I did last week. Oh my God. She's a Persian comedian, very funny. She's killing it on TikTok. I've known her for several years. She also does characters. She's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What aspect of yourself do you feel that you're freer to explore in your comedy than you might be in real life?
Oh my God, everything.
Next question, no.
I feel like it's a lot easier, to talk about it through comedy. For sure, childhood trauma is easier to talk in my comedy. It's easier to talk about my family and my mom rather than actually talking to them and dealing with whatever issues it is. So I feel like that's a lot easier. Weight has been a lot easier to talk about through comedy than it has been to talk about it in real life, I think. But I think slowly the comedy itself is helping me in the real world as well to open up and to process certain things and to be at a healthier place with things in my life as I get older.
We all have those things that are like a little bit touchier for us than they might be for the population at large. And weight is certainly one of them for me. It's something that I struggled with a lot as a kid and was made fun of a lot as a kid. And comments from parents and
Mhm.
friends and stuff really dug deep. So when you were making, for lack of a better term, fat jokes, I like felt my whole body tense up. And
Mhm.
it's hard for me to laugh at stuff. Like even though I can see that it's funny, there's a part of me that I don't know. It's a real mixed bag. Like, how do you get the courage to make fun of things like that?
I think when I see people laugh, I think it kind of gives me the okay, or at least it makes me feel a little better, I think. Not that if, so here's the thing. I'm currently in an eating disorder program,
Mhm.
and I've been in it since beginning of the year, and I'm unlearning a lot of things that I was raised with, and I'm learning new things. So in my chamber of jokes, I have a lot of self-deprecating jokes, fat self-deprecating jokes, and those jokes got the laughs. They got the punchlines over the years, but I'm noticing more and more they're not getting the same response anymore. They're not getting the laughs anymore. And obviously, I'm not just basing it on that, but because I'm going through therapy, I'm also noticing that this shit is just not that funny because there's a deeper layer to that.
That's interesting that you would say that, and thank you for being so transparent with that. I also am in recovery from an eating disorder, and I have like, I guess, coaches, for about lack of a better term. It's something that I've been working on for a few years. So maybe that's exactly why I was like, ooh, I don't know. And my husband was like cackling, and I'm like, why am I not laughing at
Mhm.
this?
No, it's perfect. I think it's natural and I think it's normal to feel that way. But you know that saying, like, I want to hit the punchline first before anybody else does. Like, you want to
Mm,
do it to yourself before someone else does. That's kind of like the mentality I had with fat jokes growing up. Like, I want to make fun of myself before someone else does it.
yes.
Or I would think like I held power in that. And maybe at a time it did have power. I did have that power. But now, as things go on and we learn things and unlearn things, I'm totally open to changing the way those jokes are told or the way certain things are approached in jokes and things like that. I I remember I was about 18. This was my first comedy show. I was going to the improv and we were going to see somebody Rodriguez, or I forgot what his name was, but Joe Rogan was a feature. He wasn't headlining. And I will never forget the way Joe Rogan's comedy set made me feel that night. 90% of his set was about fat chicks. And I was there with a couple of my friends and three guys. So it was like my friend's older sister had a date and then he bought his friends, and both of my friend and her sister were really pretty girls who were skinny. And I've always been the bigger girl in the group and the funny big girl, right? Like there's that trope.
Yes.
So I had to sit there and fake laugh and pretend like none of that shit hurt. And I'll never, to this day, I'll never forget it. And I hated it, which is why I'm not a fan of his. I can respect his hustle as a comedian, I guess, or whatever else, but I can't. I really hated the way he made me feel that night, and I'll never forget it. And that's what I mean by punching down on the underdog. Like, why would you do that? Yeah, it's funny. It's a cheap joke. It's low hanging fruit. Yeah, go for it. Let me see how far it gets you. And maybe in that moment, it gets the laughs, but it doesn't make people think. And I feel like my style of comedy, I don't want to just make people laugh. I want to make them think. He, for sure, actually, he did make me think. He made me think he's a piece of shit. Like,
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
absolutely hated it. However, I'll be honest with you, and maybe this is a little biased on my part. When it's a bigger person saying fat jokes, or if it's at themselves, I feel a little better maybe to laugh. I don't know, for lack of better words to say, but I feel a little bit more comfortable to bask in that laughter with this person, because that person is also processing when they say the fat jokes. You know what I mean? For the longest time, I couldn't say jokes about depression or even suicide in front of Armenian audiences because they weren't laughing. They were
Mm.
like really taken aback. They're like, should we laugh about, like, yeah, you should laugh. I processed this. I wrote a joke about it. Laugh. If you don't laugh, I'm gonna feel like shit.
Right.
You know,
Laugh,
and
damn
I'm
it.
really gonna be depressed. But
No, that's 100. And I think maybe, I mean, Joe Rogan is a problem on so many levels, but putting a lot of that stuff aside, when I see a male comic making fun of women's appearance, I think that's just so low. You're already in charge of everything. I mean,
right,
the world is already your oyster. Do you really need to kick other people? Like,
right,
I just it's all wrong. But the same thing with, like, it's funny when gay comedians make gay jokes or whatever. And it's weird to watch comedians who are straight men make jokes about trans people. That I like, it just kind of, it's the
yeah.
punching down that you said. You're like, is that really funny? I don't know. But suicide and depression, hilarious.
Right. And I feel like suicide and depression jokes work a lot better in open mics, because open mics is a bunch of comedians and they're all in the same boat. There's a lot of like depressed comedians out there, and when we joke about that, like we laugh at that and it's funny. But like usually those jokes don't hit in, like, I call them civilian and civilian
Yes.
audiences, you know? And speaking of like straight men doing trans jokes, like I still haven't watched Dave Chappelle's latest special on Netflix. I've been
Mm-hmm.
kind of like on the fence about it, and I'm gonna watch it, I think today or tomorrow, and figure, I don't know. Some see, and that's another thing with Dave Chappelle, like his last special, he did talk about LGBTQ, but his joke and the setup was set up in a really good way. Like it was very well written. However, I have to watch this new special and see what's up. Like there's some like stuff being said online. I got to see it for myself. I don't know how to
Right.
feel about it yet.
Right. So about that, like, I haven't seen it either, but I've seen some clips, and for me, the clips were flat. But I didn't get the whole context. Like you said, maybe there was a setup that made it funny, or maybe not. Maybe he
Or
tried for
maybe
something, it didn't
just,
make it.
yeah, or sometimes he just says things that's like, yeah, societally speaking, it's just truth, and you're like, oh, like it's kind of hard to take in, and you're like, okay,
Yes.
like, you
Yes. His
know,
jokes hurt a little bit, a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, it does. And I've seen him live, and it's honestly, it's a very out of body experience. It's insane. This was like maybe 4 years ago at the Comedy Store. He just popped in, and of course, no videos are allowed, nothing like that. And he's smoking in the room, so nobody else obviously is allowed to smoke in the room. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I think he's very talented, but like you said, his jokes like hurt sometimes because it's the truth, and you're like, oh
Yes.
fuck, I have to sit with this now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, his comedy is deep sometimes. But I just wanted to say one word about, well, not one word, but one thing about the suicide and depression jokes is that I used to volunteer on a crisis and suicide hotline, and joking is a fantastic way to get through to someone. I mean, a respectful, dark humor joke really makes the person on the other end of the phone feel like you get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
And
didn't know that, by the way. Thank you for doing that.
it was one of the best things that I've ever done. It was, yeah, it was really intense.
Now I'm wondering what the percentage of callers were comedians.
I
Very,
don't
very,
know.
very prominent. I know it's very prominent in the comedy community, unfortunately.
Yeah, and in a lot of different communities. I mean, yeah. Tell me a little bit about how your most famous character, Vartush, came into being.
Vartush kind of came to be when I had an office job and I was making videos at the office job. And sometimes like I would put like, I don't know, like a jacket or whatever on my head and pretend it was hair. And it would be like someone else. It would be like an Armenian mom character. And one of my very first videos on Instagram that went viral back when Instagram was 15 seconds was about the Armenian mom telling her daughter to stop eating bread or don't eat bread or whatever. Like that went viral. I think after that I kind of started doing like Armenian mom character or like older Armenian female character. And it kind of morphed. And then I worked with Lori Tatulian with the Big Bad Armo show. And she wrote a sketch and she's like, I think you should do this, the Vartush character in that sketch. And she gave me this wig because she has like a plethora of wigs. And she gave me this wig for the show. I didn't have a wig for her at the time. And I was like, Lori, you're not getting this wig back. I apologize. And from there, like I put the wig on and I just started doing even more of the Vartush videos. The Vartush character herself, I think, is more based on my aunt's grandma, dad, even, but definitely not my own mom. I'm going to be very honest. And even in later years, like in more recent years, I think the character itself, like being able to keep the Armenian characteristics that she has, she's also very open-minded, or like she pushes herself to be open-minded and just be a little bit more liberal than the usual Armenian older woman might be. I like putting her in that kind of juxtaposition type situations, you know? Like I think there was one video I did of Vartush wanting to be a dominatrix or something. And that's a really old video actually. I want to repost that today.
You
But
should.
yeah, like that's just how it came to be, you know, just little by little. Honestly, when I started making videos on Instagram about 8 years ago, Jesus, 8 years ago, it was because I was bored at work. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was like, oh my God, I hate this job. And I did. It was very much, I hated it, but I had my own office. It was downstairs. I had my own space and I could record stuff. So when I finally quit that job, my only thing was, oh my God, I lost my backdrop. You know, it was like,
Can I rent this office from you?
yeah, right.
Oh my, you know, hearing you describe Vartush makes me think that she is sort of like a cultural Trojan horse. She looks like your typical, like stereotypical Eastern Armenian woman, but she's here to change things up.
Yeah. So I know, right? Don't give my secrets away. No.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, I do say this all the time. She's a vessel that I use. Absolutely. It's the weirdest thing, and I can't really. I don't know how to describe this, but like Mary can say the same thing as Vartush and Mary will get hate. But if it's Vartush saying it, it's totally fine because, you know, it reminds them of their auntie. It reminds them of their mom, their neighbor,
Yes.
whoever else. So it's like, yeah, I do like to do that. And I do like to mix the medicine with the food. I'm sorry. Like, I got to do what I got to do to get through to people sometimes, you know?
It's so, like, that character is she's very relaxing for me to watch in the sense that she reminds me of, so my mom was a well-known Armenian writer, and people would come to, I don't know, Glendale and like find her and call her up and invite her over. And my mom would always say the same thing. Is there someone in your house that knows how to read Armenian coffee cups? And if they said yes, she would be like, we're going to go visit some of my fans today.
Yeah.
We ended up in the living rooms of hundreds and hundreds of Armenians, and Vartush is like in the room. She is one of those people in the room. She's either reading the cup, she's talking about someone who knows how to read the cup, but it's so relaxingly familiar to me that I really have a soft spot for that character.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. I would like to be relaxing to more people. Yeah, it's for them to enjoy my content. And totally, my grandma was the coffee cup reader, dude. Like, I watched her read everybody's coffee cups. I even like reading coffee cups. I don't really like, it's not like I base my entire life on a coffee cup reading,
right.
But I enjoy finding the like little, you know, figures in the cup and all this stuff.
Oh, can we please do this? Like after the
Yes.
pandemic thing is over or really, really died down and everyone has their 10th shot, can we
I know,
like
right?
get together and do this? It's my favorite thing. Um, do you ever get any like negative reactions to your work?
Oh my God, not at all.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on.
Huh?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, dude. No. Yeah, there is. I think I would get it more back then than I do now, but like it's still there, of course. And listen, I am politically speaking, I lean to the left. I'm a
What?
liberal. I know, right? And a lot of the audience in LA, like LA Armenians, they tend to be conservative. So even if my material doesn't have anything to do politically, they will still like they'll make fake accounts and comment, troll things. So I've learned to like just, restrict or block or whatever. And especially within this last couple years, it's been so dividing. I think maybe that might be one of the reasons why maybe I'm not creating as much as I used to because I'm so drained and so done with people that I'm just like I don't want to put this video out because I know it's going to get so much hate. But then again, that's part of the gig. It comes with that. So to expect that you're not going to get hate when you make content for online is unrealistic. You're going to get hate. It's going to happen. Back then they would talk smack because we were making videos about Armenians doing fraud, let's say, right? But it's like, art imitates life or life imitates art. Which is it? Because it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. If it wasn't true, we wouldn't be doing it, you know?
You also engage a lot with people online. Like you
God, I
can
do. Did you
put
know?
stuff that's political on and somebody responds with something ignorant and you're like you take them to task and I'm thinking like, "Oh, don't waste your time."
No, it depends on the time where we're at, if Mercury's in retrograde. No, it depends. It depends on the mood I'm in. Some days I'm just like, girl, whatever, like block, Other days I'm like, oh, I'm gonna show you. You just
That's true.
and I just turn into like this keyboard warrior. But God, that's so not helpful at all. Like I can physically feel my body just not being well that entire day when I'm arguing with people. And the funny thing is, because I'm on TikTok right now, of course, like my following is not as big, but I did I did a vaccine video on TikTok about like how I'm trying to explain to my family why it's important to get the vaccine. And I got so much hate from younger Armenians on
Oh
there.
man.
I couldn't believe it, dude. And I realized what I was doing. I was arguing with the kids on TikTok, and then I was arguing with their parents on Instagram, and then arguing with their grandparents on Facebook. I
Ouch.
was like, bro, I cannot continue this. Like, this is so not productive. Like, I just don't want to deal with it anymore, dude. I'm so
Yeah.
over it. Yeah.
I
So,
hope you don't let that stop you from putting content out though.
God,
I mean,
I'll let myself know, I don't know. Like, I'll try to push myself, but some days it wins, I don't want to deal with people and their BS. I'd rather just I don't want to call it hacky, but I'd rather just put out content that's not going to ruffle feathers versus putting content that I know that's going to ruffle feathers. And I know that's like such a bitch thing to say that like I don't want to risk it, but I've been doing this for like 8 years, dude. I'm so over arguing with people. And you would think it would be easy to just ignore the comments, but sometimes, like, I can have 100 positive comments, but that one negative comment is the one that gets me. And I don't
yes.
know why my brain is like that.
I don't think you're alone. I think that's a very common thing. And also what a great topic for your therapist.
Hmm.
Tell me why this one person. Yeah, it's like that, like when you have a party and like that one person doesn't show up. It's a birthday party or something, and all 50 of your friends showed up, but that one person didn't. You're like, how dare they? And I
Yeah.
wonder what kind of excuse they're going to have.
But I will say, like, therapy, I can tell my eating disorder therapy that I've been doing has been helping so much, because when I did post about my eating disorder situation and I was talking about it, I got so many, like, first of all, I was so surprised that a lot of people were very supportive, and like people even wrote to me their own stories. But like, I did see a comment, and it was totally a comment that I would have, cried over, or I would have taken down my video over. I would have just done a bunch of things. But in that moment, I knew exactly what was going on and how I reacted to it. And I was so happy about that. Like, that's, I think to me, was like progress without the scale, because I threw away my bathroom scale in the beginning of the year when I started the therapy. And I'm
Yeah.
always wondering, like, how do I know I'm making progress without the scale? Because we're so programmed to think like
Mm-hmm.
that number has so much more meaning than it does. And this is exactly how you see progress without it. I was able to not respond to it. I was like, okay, cool. This is this person's point of view. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, thank you for therapy. I would have been such
Yes.
a mess if I wasn't in therapy.
I think for me, the biggest non-scale victory, and that's what I call them, the biggest
Mhm.
non-scale victory for me is peace of mind.
Mhm.
Like if I can just, for me, like be on track and not binge, or recognize an impulse and sit with it instead of
Right.
having to act on it. Like those are the really, really big wins.
Totally.
Do I wish I could drop certain number of pounds overnight? Yeah, I do, but I will take like the mental peace of mind any day over weight loss, actually.
Totally. Totally. I agree.
Okay, I want to change topics just a little bit,
Mhm.
because also I remember when I came to see you, you did a bit at the end, which was like, "Okay, I'm single. This is my no." You were like, "Who's single in the audience? I'm here available to date." So it got me thinking.
Mhm.
Um, have you dated someone who isn't Armenian? Would you date someone who isn't Armenian? And would you marry someone who isn't Armenian?
That's a good question. I have dated someone who's not Armenian. I tend to get along with men that are not Armenian.
Uh-huh.
I was raised, my grandparents, they were like, you have to marry another Armenian to create more Armenians because they try to kill us off. Like, this is the rhetoric I was raised with, okay? So it
Yes.
was like I had to marry an Armenian to procreate. I think it's not a bad thing to marry a non-Armenian, because before I was like, oh my God, how dare you? You have to be super Armenian, right? Like, that was my mindset. But now I'm just like, love is love. And we're living in a melting pot. It would be a disservice to yourself to only limit yourself to Armenians. But I also don't judge people that do that. Some people just want to marry an Armenian because they feel like, culturally speaking, it's a lot easier to connect. It's a lot, where that person's family is from, and it just meshes, right? Some people just look for that in relationships, and others don't. For me personally, yeah, I probably will get. First of all, I'm not gonna get married. Okay, let me just start off there.
Oh, okay. Tell me
Really,
about that. Is that a decision?
dude, I don't know. I don't really see myself getting married. I feel like at this age, if I haven't married, I haven't even been in a real relationship my whole life. So I can't say if I'm gonna get married or not. It just seems like such impossible task to me to be
Okay,
in a
wait.
relationship.
Wait. When you say you haven't been in a real relationship,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
No, I haven't had a serious boyfriend. My only like real serious boyfriend, I think when I was 16, and it was like an online thing, and we met like maybe a handful of times, I want to say, and
Hmm.
that didn't last very long. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I've never had a serious relation. I've never had a serious boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that. So that's why I feel like, and I know I'm gonna talk about it with my therapist, but I do believe like a lot of things from childhood, I'm sure, have a impact on my relationship or intimacy, I should
Yes.
say. So maybe that's something I work on in the future and I do get in a relationship. I don't know. But right now, it just seems like a really far away concept for me. That's why when people even talk about marriage, I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. Like, it's,
Okay,
yeah,
baby steps.
yeah, yeah.
Would you want to be in a relationship, or are you just in the I'm still figuring myself out
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
part?
still figuring myself out. I feel like there's a lot, like, I still want to do, with all the things I've been learning this past year about myself, about the toxic diet culture, about everything around me. I feel like I'm unlearning a lot and learning a lot at the same time. So I just want to give myself that space. I want to figure myself out. I want to be kind to that and not rush it. That's another thing. I'm noticing a lot of people my age, not just females, but also males, they're rushing into things because they feel like they're running out of time or that at a certain age they have to be. I really like my solitude. I love being alone. I love
Mhm.
spending time with myself. And I know, like, some people are going to find this very surprising, but I'm actually an introvert. I don't like going out. I don't like dealing with people. So I really like being by myself. Even before COVID, like, I loved being away from people.
Me too.
Yeah. And like when you marry someone, like you have to go to their family functions. Bro, I don't even go to my own family's functions. Like, I don't want to, and you have to do this to save face too, because a lot of my friends, like, they'll be like, oh, my husband's family is having this, that. I have to go. And I'm just like, girl, you have to go? I ain't going nowhere. Like,
That's so
no.
funny because when I got married, my in-laws they're from the Midwest, but they lived in Arizona. My mother-in-law passed away last year. Yeah. But they were so non-interfering, and we literally would have to drive to Arizona to see them, and that rarely ever happened. And my dad was like, "You don't know how lucky you are to have these in-laws."
Right? Maybe I will marry another.
You're like, first question, what's the status of your parents? Where do they live and how involved are they in your
Yeah,
life?
right? No, my first question is, does your mom still do your laundry? Shit.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Can't open up that can of worms.
Oh
I
my
do
God.
not get it. I do not get
But
it.
but ultimately, what I will say, let's say in some weird twist of events, I end up getting married or I end up having a kid who's half Armenian. I still believe teaching the child Armenian language, reading and writing, the culture, the history, everything. And whatever my child, let's say, is mixed with, I will also want the other parents' culture to have an influence on the child as well, because that's equally part of who they are. So, but whether I marry an Armenian or not, I'm passing down my Armenian culture regardless.
Woohoo!
That's,
I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
yeah. I
No, I
think
think
that's what
that's
a lot
great.
of Armenians think. They think like if you marry a non-Armenian, your child isn't going to be Armenian enough. Ah, see the title. But
Yes.
that's what they think. But I think that's BS. It depends on the parents. There's so many like people I know that came from Armenia and they don't even speak Armenian anymore. But I know
Oh,
people that were
wow.
born and raised here that are really all about the culture and they're really into it. So it just depends on the person.
Yeah, it was my daughter, she understands more Armenian than she feels comfortable speaking.
Mhm.
But she does speak some, and in her heart she's Armenian. Bless my little girl. She likes her little flags, she likes marching, she likes doing all the Armenian stuff. She really, really feels it in her heart. But last week her teacher at school said, if to the whole class, she said, if even one of you stops speaking Armenian, Armenia will die.
Oh, that's wow.
I was
Okay.
like, "Oh my God." And she came home after, well, I picked her up after school and she's like, "Mom, who should I believe? You or my teacher?" And I was like, "Me, believe me." I said, "You're Armenian. Like, no one can take that away from you. It was
Right.
given to you by God. Like, this is in you. This is who you are. Of course we want you to learn how to speak and read and write Armenian, but even if you don't, no one's taking away your
Right.
membership
The
to this
Armenian
club."
card. Yeah. you know what the teacher said is really harsh, okay? Like, it's so, like, it's scary too, okay? Let me tell you something, that I've had nightmares in the past where people are forgetting to write, like, I'm trying to write down the Armenian alphabet, and there was like Armenian books being thrown in the fire, and I can't figure out how to preserve the language and the letters. Like, this was a dream I had a
Whoa.
while back.
That's your anxiety
Yeah,
dream.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's what I was taught. Like, if we don't learn the language, it's going to disappear. And let me tell you something. Again, what the teacher said and the way she said it was like extremely harsh, especially for young kids. There's a way of saying it, okay? Like, you don't scare them into learning Armenian. You make it fun and you make it accepting. And then, like, you mentioned, like, your daughter knows more Armenian than she speaks. It's
Mm-hmm.
also because what we tend to do, unfortunately, when someone doesn't say something correctly in Armenian, or they don't pronounce it, or maybe they sound, I don't know, westernized, for a lack of better words, while they're speaking Armenian, we tend to make fun of those people, or we say, oh, you don't sound Armenian, or whatever else. Instead of doing that, we're supposed to welcome people like that and teach them the correct spelling or the correct pronunciation instead of shaming them. That I even have friends that are, they're full Armenian and they don't speak Armenian because they're scared that someone is going to correct them, or that they're going to be shunned for or shamed for not speaking it correctly, which is so stupid. I think
Right.
so many more people would be speaking Armenian if that wasn't there. So last year, with everything that was going on with Azerbaijan and Armenia and Artsakh, it was a very panic mode for all Armenians around the world. We're like, we're losing our land, we're losing our culture, we're going to be wiped off of the planet. Like, that's what it feels like, in that moment. But I think, like, that's kind of why I started the Vartush vocab, was because I was like, I'm not a politician. I don't have control in those rooms like those people do. What I have control over is the language, or maybe the cooking, or maybe songs or dancing. These are things, and this has been true for since beginning of time. You can pass those along to generations after generations. You don't have to have like you're on the map, you're this, you're that. You pass on your language, you pass on your dance. I think that's maybe what the teacher meant, but she was so harsh in saying it to such young groups of people. Like, you don't scare kids like that. You, like I said, you make it in a fun way and you pass it along, so these kids want to learn and they pass it on to the younger generations. But and again, I don't think speaking or non-speaking doesn't make you Armenian or not, even though I am guilty. In the past, I was brought up to believe, yeah, if you don't speak Armenian, you're not Armenian, but that's complete BS. And I learned that even more this past year. There were so many non-Armenians, or half Armenian, half Hispanic, half whatever. They would hit me up and they'd be like, thank you so much for doing this Vartush vocab. Like, I'm learning a lot from it. Like, I haven't really wanted to learn in other environments because they were kind of shaming. That's another thing. Shame and guilt is like such a big part of our culture. And it's like, how do we expect people to open up and want to learn and want to be Armenian if we're going to shun them and shame them for all this stuff? It's so crazy.
Exactly. They're like
Yeah,
old-fashioned tactics to
very old.
shun and to shame. We need to wake up a little bit as a culture and be more welcoming of people, and it'll be something that people will want to be a part of because we're
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I
In our own
agree.
way.
100% agree. I think that teacher's tactic was really just harsh. Like, it was and it is scary, dude. Why would you put fear like that in a child? Like, I mean, yes, maybe as an adult, you're watching the news, you're watching the internet and everything, and you're seeing all this go down between Artsakh and Azerbaijan and Armenia, and you may feel that way. You may feel like Armenia is going to die and it's not going to exist anymore, but you don't project that onto the young kids. You can't
Right.
do that to them. That's like borderline abuse, but, I'm not a parent, so I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I think you can speak
Argue,
authoritatively on that.
right?
Oh my God. It has been so much fun talking to you. I,
Likewise.
I love my new introvert best friend, my
Yeah,
new bestie. Do you have a few more minutes for our 5 fun questions that we
sure.
like to wrap things up with? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 1 question. This is the hardest one for most people.
Okay.
What is your favorite Armenian food?
Oh.
See, I told you.
Oh. Um. Shit. Girl, everything is my favorite. I like and here's another thing. When I say like a food, people are like, that's not Armenian, that's
Yeah,
this,
I know.
that. I hate that. But something I've eaten around Armenians and that I like is vermicelli of pilaf. I really like the vermicelli and pilaf mixed. And then
Mm.
God, like chorov, I love chorovats. I love Armenian barbecue. I love like all the food they serve at those like the halls and the functions. But to keep it basic, I also love the lavash, feta, and some green onions and
Mm.
cilantro, just gananchi and bonite with bread. Basic, but I love it. Like it's so good to me.
The appetizers are the best for me. I've like never cared about the full meal, but like just bring me your 20
Yeah,
wedding appetizers. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, the second question that I ask everyone, I'm pretty sure we already know, is I asked, do you understand both Western and Eastern Armenian?
Mhm.
You tailor your show to Western or Eastern Armenian. You ask people in the audience what they speak, and then you change.
I do. I try. That's another. When you were saying how your daughter's learning Armenian, but it's also hard because of dialects. We have two dialects, dude, and you write differently. That's another. That was something I was struggling with when I was going to Saturday school. So Hayastanti's Eastern Armenian, right? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I speak Eastern Armenian. And the writing, my grandmother, because she was from Egypt, I guess, but she writes in Western Armenian, and she told me, she's like, the writing in Western Armenian is correct, and the pronunciation, or the speaking is Eastern correct, is the correct way, or whatever. That's what
Oh,
she told
wow.
me. That's what she told me. It could just be like a bias thing, but it's so hard, dude. I am mainly Eastern Armenian dialect when I speak as Vartush, but
Uh-huh.
if needed, I do switch to Western dialect, and I'm not that great at it. I would like to get even better. And then there's also, of course, the Barskahai dialect,
Yes.
which I am not versed in at all, and I'm trying my best.
It's more a sing-songy
Yeah, yeah.
approach.
Exactly. And sometimes like they have certain words that I've never heard of, or I have words that they've never heard of. So like,
True.
this is what happens when genocide occurs in a country. We all split up and then we have all these different dialects.
It's true. I mean, I think Eastern Armenian is the correct pronunciation because otherwise you have two Ks and two Gs and two R.
Mhm.
It's like you can't,
Right.
there's no point in having letters that sound exactly the same. But it is difficult. I had family members who did not understand Eastern Armenian at all, and I would have to translate for them since in my school I had
Yeah.
people that spoke both and I spoke both. But you do a pretty good job with Western. Most Eastern Armenians, when they try to speak Western, they just indiscriminately add gor at the end of things.
Yes.
It's like you don't need to do that, but
Exactly. And I think I picked up because my grandparents on both sides, they spoke a little bit of Western because they're from Egypt. Okay, so they repatriated, and I think they speak more Western Armenian than if they were to be born and raised in Armenia. And that's where I think I picked up a lot of the Western dialect.
what is the most American thing about you?
Oh, that I'm vaccinated? No.
Well,
Right? My
50-50.
politics? No. I don't. What is American about me? You know what? I don't save yogurt containers. There, I said it. I don't save any of these containers. I sometimes get into it with my sister because she's like, "Are you
Hold
saving?"
on. Hold on. Do you have a tin of butter cookies? And if so, what's inside it?
I know, right? You know what? My grandma had her sewing kit in that shit.
Of
Yes, it
course.
was her hard, like the ball that you use to sew socks. She had that in there, and she had a bunch of the I forgot how to say tel in English, strings and like needles and things like that. That's what went in there. I think my dad has a bunch of those, and now it's like his tools, and like he'll have nails and things like that in there. I actually
Armenians and Hispanics, like we all, it's the same thing. It's that butter
I
cookie tin.
swear, like I've never actually found cookies in those things before. Because I actually have the container. There's nothing in it right now. Like I'm gonna use it for something, but I've saved. That's the one container I will save for sure.
Okay, this next question I think might be difficult for you too. Do you have a favorite Armenian celebrity?
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, they're all really awesome. Just to
Uh-huh.
say that, so I can work with
They're all the best in the world at everything.
right? Um, girl, I don't know. I'm a fan of like Serge and Shavo from System of a Down. They're really cool.
Mhm.
Shavo's actually very down to earth guy. So is Serge. Why are you putting me on the spot like this?
It's just what I
I know,
do.
right? It's okay. I I don't know, dude.
Are you a Kardashians fan? No, I'm just kidding.
Girl, listen, I have a very complicated relationship with them. I'm gonna be honest.
Oh?
Yeah, like with their fan base and like with actually liking or not liking them. I did
Uh-huh.
a video about 6 years ago about how, William Saroyan, the famous
Yes.
Armenian author from
Who
Fresno,
didn't speak Armenian, by the way, just putting it out there.
right? I was like, if William Saroyan had a sex tape, he would have like I know, right? Just that
Okay,
juxtaposition.
okay.
Yeah. I was like, he would have like I think he would have had the amount of influence on the Western world that the Kardashians had. Okay, this was like a take I had like 6 years
Uh-huh.
ago because she went to Armenia and like people were like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna bring recognition to the genocide. Like people are gonna know what Armenia is." Because here's another thing: Armenians, we always seek the validation and recognition of like the Western
Yes.
world, like we feel like, oh, we want them to recognize the genocide, we want them to know what an Armenian is. And I was like, back then you'd think like if he had like, if he had like some scandal, let's say, and it was like paparazzis and William Saroyan this and that, I feel like he would have brought recognition to the country and to the genocide as well. So like that was like a take I had, and I kind of like connected it to the video itself. I'm sure is not that bad. Maybe it sounds bad now that I'm saying it about
It
him
sounds
having a,
funny.
but I'm not. Listen, yes, the Kardashians are Armenian. Their father was Armenian, and their mother, Chris, is white. I feel like they have the Armenian last name, and I think like that last name alone, just being out in public, is something for the Armenian community. I feel like people now know what an Armenian is, I
Mhm.
think. Because I even had like a coworker, she was from the Midwest, and she came up to me one day years ago. She was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know about the genocide." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so great. How did you learn about the genocide?" And she's like, "From the Kardashians." And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Hey, man, it takes what it takes.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, yeah. So that's my like, thing that I have with the Kardashians. Let them do their thing. It's just as a creator or whatever, I've heard like some of their stuff, they'll, maybe rip off like other creators like fashion wise and things like that. Like stories like that have come out. I will, however, say I'm not too happy with the fact that Kim's bodysuit company makes a lot of their stuff in Turkey,
Yes.
because that's a no-no for us Armenians. We want to boycott that. We don't want to stimulate their economy like that. So like there is that, and then Cher is another really like big celebrity that a lot of people kind of overlook when it comes to the Armenian thing, but she like went to Armenia in the 90s
Oh,
when
I
the
remember.
earthquake happened, when the Soviet Union fell. Like she went there. I also look to Cher. Who else? I think there was Actually, speaking of Jay Leno also introduced me when we were in the green room that day at the show. He's like, "Hey, do you know this actor?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "He's Armenian." I was like, "What?" He goes, "He just changed his last name to make it easier," which is like something that a lot of people do,
Mm-hmm.
like Armenians. And I was like, oh, "Okay," and I looked it up, and it was like he was this famous actor whose name I can't remember now because that's who I
You
am.
killed the
But
story.
no, I'm sorry.
Who was it? Who was it? Who was it?
I don't remember. I'm so
That's
sorry,
okay.
and I'm gonna remember, and I will post about. But I had no idea. But you know, here's the thing that I also feel like Armenian, just because they're Armenian, I don't expect them to give their everything to Armenia. Yes, I would like for them to bring recognition to the Armenian struggles or like to the genocide and like for people to, love the country that their parents or grandparents are from, but you can't put that on everybody. Not everybody's going to have the same outlook as you. Like I'm born and raised in this Armenian community. I'm very patriotic for Armenians and the country, but I can't expect that from Alex Ohanian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the man, he donated and he posted about the Armenian war that was going on this past year. He did but he wasn't posting about it like 24/7, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't expect that from them either.
We
This is
do
something
have this thing in Armenian culture. Sorry to talk over you. We do have this thing in Armenian culture where we respect Armenian celebrities who are famous elsewhere first. So if they're famous in
Mhm.
another country, then they're like, wow, the famous French singer who's also Armenian or famous, actress or whatever. And I wish we would kind of get rid of that, requiring that validation from another culture first.
Yes, which I think is what we do here in America as well. Like we value or the validity of the person's fame is more when they have fame in the Western world versus in the Armenian world, or if they're famous in France versus Armenia.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that comes from, oh, they're spreading the Armenian word, or like Armenians are seen, let's say. Like maybe that's what it's equating to. I'm not sure. But I've always said this, and my comedy, when I started doing comedy, I really wanted also to do for the Armenian community what George Lopez did for the Hispanic community,
Mm,
and like just introduce everyone to the Armenian culture, not just Armenians. Yes, my audience is predominantly Armenians, and sometimes you can't control your audience, like it's who likes your stuff. But I also really do like when non-Armenians engage with my content, or like they watch my videos or they come to shows, because I'm teaching them about my culture and I'm doing it in a funny way and going
totally.
from there. Yeah.
So, last question on the 5 fun questions. Do you know how to read Armenian coffee cups?
Yes, I do. I do actually, and I'm not that bad at it, to be
Oh,
honest. Yeah, I have my friend Gasia. She also does podcast.
what podcast?
What the Foreign with Gasia Pushian.
I've never heard of it.
I don't know if she's still doing it, but she's really funny, and it's called WTF, What the
Oh, I
Foreign.
see.
And yeah, and she's really cool. How did this come up? I'm so sorry.
I was asking
Um,
if you read coffee cups.
yes. So she's really into that. So like
Ooh.
we on the podcast we drank coffee, and this is before COVID. We drank coffee and I read her coffee cup as Vartush,
I'm
and
so
then
jealous.
I know this is before COVID.
Okay.
But like now, whenever she drinks coffee, she'll sometimes take a picture of her cup after she's done and send it to me.
Oh my
And she'll be
God.
like, "Oh my God, what do you see?" And girl, every time, like I'm like, "Dude, I see this, 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 and this." She freaks out because she's like, "Oh my God, that's exactly what's
Oh,
happening."
wow.
Like, yeah, sometimes I like to do that.
I think you're going to get
And
a lot of messages after this.
I know, right? Read my coffee cup.
Half of them will be from me. What do you think of this?
Right?
Will you drink some and take a few photos and send it so that we can post it along with the episode?
Yeah, sure. I just have to find Armenian coffee now.
I'm sure.
I know. I drink regular coffee,
Yes.
but I will definitely. I've been meaning to get some Armenian coffee from the market.
There you go.
To have it. Yeah, we keep it in the freezer. By the way,
Of
do you guys do that?
course, I should. My mom did, but I'm a bad Armenian, so I just keep it in the cupboard.
But yeah, like that's what we do, and I will definitely do that. But when, like you said, when COVID dies down more and like we're able to be in person, I would love to read your cup as vodka.
Yes. Oh my God, that'd be a dream. That would be a dream. Do you
Maybe
ever
at some
light that cigarette, by the way, or is it always unlit?
girl, I have been a social cigarette smoker since 2006, I think, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never went past a pack. Like a pack would last me like 2 weeks, let's say, or
Okay.
more. Because my family at home didn't know I was smoking, so I wasn't smoking at home. And then if I smoked at work, it was like maybe once or twice a week if I wanted to go outside for a
I
bit.
guess the big news flash is your mom's scare tactics did not work.
Right? But this since December, I haven't been smoking cigarettes at all. I just
Good.
figured, yeah, I'm like, whatever. Like, if I'm not even a smoker like that, because one time I went to the doctor's office and it was a checkup, and she asked like, "How much do you smoke?" And I told her how much. She goes, "Why are you even smoking? Like, you're
Right.
just not even, you're not addicted, but also just stop." So that's what I did since December. So now I don't like the cigarette at all. It's just prop.
I think it's a good thing. And I think we should each hold a Virginia Slims as we do coffee
Right?
readings.
Exactly. It's the aesthetic of it. That's why a lot of people, when I did this show recently, this Armenian guy, and it was at a Middle Eastern hookah place, of course. This guy, he kept trying to light the cigarette. And I was like, bro, sit your ass down, dog. This is aesthetic, bro. Like, don't light my shit. Like, I don't want it lit.
Oh my God.
But I totally noticed in videos, or if I've gone live as Vartush, it like irritates some
Oh,
people.
really?
And they're like, aren't you gonna light the cigarette? Just light it's like a thing, people want to they see an unlit cigarette, and an Armenian wants to light that cigarette. It's like everything in their
Like an
body is
OCD. They have to light the cigarette.
yeah.
Oh my God. You are so much fun to talk to. I wish you lived next door so we could sit on our porch and drink Armenian coffee and chat and then be alone when we wanted to be alone. But thank you so much for doing this
Thank
interview.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this podcast. It's so important, and you're doing some great work with this. Thank you so
Oh my
much.
God. Thank you. You can reach Mary on her website at I always forget that dot, at marybasmadjiancomedy.com, or on Facebook and Instagram at Mary Basmadjian. I'm sure you have a TikTok too, but I didn't ask you that. What's your TikTok?
I've kept it Mary Basmadjian all across the board so people can easily find it.
There you go. As always, we will have all of her info in the show notes for this episode. I'd like to say a special thank you to all of our patrons. I love you, and your support means so much to me. Whether you're a patron or not, if you enjoy the conversations and perspectives we bring you, please share our podcasts on your social media so all the people you love can listen too. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember that you are always more than enough.